The store was already closed. The lights were half-dimmed. And 19-year-old Emma, a shy cashier working her first late-night shift alone, was turning the sign from open to closed when she saw three silhouettes press against the glass door. Their faces were hard. Their fists hit the door like thunder. And the moment Emma reached for her phone, her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. She didn't know why they were angry. She didn't know what they wanted. But she did know one thing: she was trapped. Outside were three grown men trying to force their way in. Inside, she felt completely alone. Or so she thought. Because what Emma didn't realize was that the five bikers who had come in for snacks a few minutes before closing were still in the back aisle, and they had heard everything. Before we jump into this powerful story of unexpected courage and life-changing kindness, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel. You're watching True Story Tales, where real-life stories remind us that goodness still exists even in the darkest moments. Emma had been working at Corner Mart for almost 6 months. It wasn't her dream job, but it helped her pay for college classes. She was soft-spoken, careful, and always willing to pick up shifts nobody else wanted. Tonight was one of those nights. A coworker called in sick, and Emma volunteered to cover closing. By 11:30 p.m., the town was quiet. The highway nearby hummed with occasional traffic. Inside the store, the buzz of old fluorescent lights mixed with the distant whir of a drink cooler. It felt peaceful at first, that kind of lonely peace you only get when you're young and trying to prove you can handle the world on your own. Around 11:45, a group of bikers stopped by. Their engines roared like thunder as they pulled into the parking lot. Emma felt a rush of nerves, not because they seemed dangerous, but because she always felt intimidated by loud groups. But when they walked in, each of them nodded politely. One of them, a tall man with a silver beard braided at the bottom, even tipped his head and said, "Evenin', ma'am. Sorry to barge in so late." They weren't troublemakers. They were just tired travelers grabbing energy drinks and beef jerky. Emma relaxed. They were surprisingly kind, even helping pick up a bag of chips that had fallen off a shelf earlier. She didn't know their names, but she did know they made the store feel less lonely. When the bikers drifted into the back aisles to choose snacks, Emma prepared to close. She didn't want to rush them, so she quietly locked the back office and began counting the final cash. That's when the pounding on the door shattered the quiet. 3 men stood outside, all in dark hoodies, their faces twisted in anger. One yelled, "We know you're in there. Open up." Another slammed his palm against the glass so hard Emma feared it might crack. She froze. Every instinct told her to hide, but she forced herself to walk to the front and speak through the door. "We're closed," she said with a trembling voice. "Please come back tomorrow." But they didn't leave. Instead, the tallest one leaned in, his nose almost touching the glass. "Open the door," he growled. "We're not asking twice." Emma backed away, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear the blood rushing in her ears. She pulled out her phone to call 911, but one of the men kicked the metal frame of the door and shouted, "Don't you dare, girl." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook uncontrollably. But something unexpected happened. From behind the chip aisle, a deep voice rumbled, "Hey! Everything all right up here?" Emma turned to see the silver-bearded biker, the one who had been polite earlier, walking toward her. Behind him were 4 others, their boots heavy, their steps certain. Emma's eyes widened. I didn't realize you were still in the store," she whispered. The biker gave her a gentle smile. "Good thing we were." The other bikers stepped up beside her, forming a silent wall between Emma and the door. Their presence alone felt like a shield. The thugs outside kept yelling, but now, instead of fear, Emma felt something she hadn't felt since the pounding started. Relief. The silver-bearded biker approached the door and calmly locked the main bolt from the inside. Then he turned to Emma. "You call the cops," he said softly. "We got the rest." Emma nodded, dialing with shaky fingers. Outside, the men realized they were no longer facing a scared teenager. They were facing 5 large bikers who did not look amused. One of the thugs snarled, trying to keep his bravado. "What? You think you're tough? Come outside and say that." The silver-bearded biker didn't raise his voice. Didn't insult them. He simply stepped up to the glass and stared at them with a look so steady and unbroken that the men instinctively shifted back. Then, in a calm tone that somehow carried more threat than any yelling could, he said, "Son, walk away." The men hesitated. For the first time since they arrived, they looked unsure. But instead of leaving, the tallest one spat on the ground and shouted, "This ain't over." He and his two friends stormed off into the night, disappearing behind the alley next to the store. Emma let out a shaky breath. "What if they come back?" she whispered. "They might," one of the bikers said, cracking his knuckles. "But we're not going anywhere till the cops get here." Emma expected them to be fired up with adrenaline, shouting, pacing, maybe even laughing. But they weren't. They were calm. Protecting her seemed natural to them, as if they'd done it 100 times before. Why are you helping me?" Emma finally asked. The silver-bearded biker looked at her gently. "Because you remind me of my daughter," he said quietly. "And because nobody deserves to be scared while they're just trying to do their job." The words hit Emma straight in the chest. She felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. A few minutes later, the red and blue glow of police lights filled the parking lot. Officers swept the area, eventually finding the three men behind the store trying to break into the back door. They were arrested on the spot. When the police came inside to take statements, Emma's voice still shook, but she felt supported. The bikers stayed behind her like a protective circle, never leaving until the officers confirmed she was safe. After everything was done, Emma stepped outside with the bikers. The night air was cool, and the quiet felt different now, like the danger had been washed away. She looked at the silver-bearded biker. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "I don't know what would have happened if you weren't here." He smiled, but it was gentle, almost fatherly. "Kindness ain't complicated, ma'am," he said. "Sometimes it's just staying when someone needs you." The bikers climbed onto their motorcycles, engines rumbling to life. But before they rode off, one of them, a stocky guy with tattoos shaped like flames, handed Emma a small card. It read, "Iron Faith Riders Brotherhood, Service, Protection. If you ever work a late shift again," he said, "and you feel unsafe, call us. We're usually riding nearby." Emma stared at the card, stunned. "You mean that?" "Every word," he said. The bikers gave her one last reassuring nod, then thundered into the night, leaving Emma standing under the store's flickering sign, shaken, but safe. 4 days afterward, customers heard what happened. Some brought Emma flowers. Others slipped her kind notes. But what stayed in her heart wasn't the fear or the danger. It was the moment complete strangers chose to stand between her and the darkness. It was the reminder that kindness often arrives looking nothing like we expect, sometimes wearing leather jackets, riding motorcycles, and carrying a quiet strength that changes everything. Emma never forgot that night. It became a story she told others whenever they felt alone, scared, or convinced that the world was full of cruelty. She told them about the strangers who stood up for her. About the kindness that arrived when she least expected it. About courage that didn't need violence, only presence. And she learned something powerful. Kindness isn't weakness. Kindness doesn't stay silent. Kindness shows up, especially when it matters most. So wherever you are, and whatever you face, remember that the world still has good people in it. Sometimes they're closer than you think. Sometimes they're already standing in the aisle behind you. And sometimes, kindness rides a motorcycle.